The separate self always wants to turn what you really are into a practice. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is your inherent nature, being happy, being loving, being peaceful, being free, being grateful, being patient, being intelligent, being generous, being kind. The list goes on. This is really what you are. So the separate self turns something like acceptance into a practice. How can I practice being more accepting? How can I practice being more patient? How can I practice being more grateful? So the mind, the separate self, it's always trying to practice what you actually are. What you actually are is acceptance. What you actually are is gratitude. What you actually are is patience. And I know that doesn't make much sense. What you are is acceptance. You are much like the space of this room. The space of this room doesn't reject any of the furniture, any of the objects in it. It simply accepts everything in it. It allows everything to be as it is. So how much practice does the space need to do in order to accept all of the objects that appear in it? No practice at all. Acceptance is inherent to this physical space. It's its nature. The space is naturally accepting. Now, this space, is it coming and going? Is it moving anywhere? No, the space of this room is absolutely still. So it's not going anywhere. It's not in a hurry. It's not on some timeline trying to arrive somewhere. Sure, the objects might be coming and going, but the space is not coming and going. It's ever present. And because it's ever present, it's ever patient. It can't go anywhere. If you can't go anywhere, you're naturally patient. If you're ever present, you're naturally patient. Just like this empty space in the room, it's full of objects. All of these objects are appearing in the empty space of the room. So it's full of objects. It's the empty space that's the potential of this room. This room could look many different ways. And all of those possibilities are because of the empty space. Without the space, there would be no objects. The objects in this room can only exist because of the empty space. Without the space, there would be no possibility of the room looking this way or that way. This design, this style, that style, this look, that look. All of that depends on the space. Relatively speaking, the reality of this room is the empty space. So it's full. It's full of possibilities, it's full of potential, it's full of objects. Naturally, it's grateful. Gratitude is your nature. Patience is your nature. Acceptance is your nature. This empty space is not disturbed by any of the objects that appear in it. It's not in conflict with old furniture or new furniture, this style or that style. So it's naturally peaceful. The space is at peace with all of the objects that appear in it. There's a harmony between the objects and the space that they appear in. There's this natural harmony, this natural interdependency that cannot be separated. You can't separate the object from the space. The objects depend on the space. Now, the space of the room is not attached to certain furniture. If I get rid of the couch, if I get rid of this chair, if I want to swap the table with something different, if the TV breaks and I want to get a new TV, the space is not holding on to the objects. It's not in fear of losing the objects. It's not attached to any of the objects. It's inherently free. It's naturally free of the objects that appear in it. So these are just a few examples giving you the analogy of the space of the room. And like that, just using the space of the room, relating it to our true nature. The space of the room doesn't practice being patient. It doesn't practice accepting. It doesn't practice being peaceful. It doesn't practice being free. It just is. But the way the separate self goes about it is it's becoming. It wants to become what you already are, which is impossible. You can't become what you already are. Being yourself is effortless. Becoming is always about effort. So it likes this game of hearing these things like, oh, our true nature is peace, or our true nature is acceptance. Our true nature just allows. Our true nature is generous, grateful, creative. So it then wants to take those natural, you could say, qualities, even though what you are is actually without qualities. But it wants to take these qualities and it wants to practice. It sees it as a progression. I'm getting better as somebody who's more accepting. I'm getting better as somebody who's more patient. I'm getting better as somebody who's more grateful. And no amount of practice in that way is going to bring you to what you already are. If anything, it just leads to more frustration. It's coming to the simple recognition of what you are. It's just realizing what you are, and then it's as if you are, there's no good word for it, full of those natural qualities with no practice. And it doesn't matter who you were in terms of being a person or what your background was or your past, because all of that is conditional and what you are is unconditional. So it's just to simply realize that this is a little bit of a game that the mind plays, the separate self, trying to become what you already are. The separate self prolonging the journey, just making the journey longer. It will make this journey so long with all of this progression of becoming, the journey of becoming. Where in fact you realize that you are the destination. You're it right now, and it is present. And by realizing it, then all of these things that you're trying to practice, gratitude and patience and acceptance and generosity and peace and all of that, it's just like you're the expression of that all of those qualities are just your natural expression. You just weren't expressing it before because you didn't know what you are. You didn't realize what you are. After realizing what you are, then you just become that expression. When I say that, I mean as the body mind seems to be expressing those natural qualities. And it feels exactly just like I said. They're just natural qualities. It feels natural. It feels unnatural to be impatient. It feels unnatural to be ungrateful. It seems to be something that you can't even really do, to be ungrateful, to be impatient, to be stingy. Just feels more of like, that's not what I am. Like it's hard to describe. You just can't. There may have been a time, you could say, prior to realizing that, yeah, maybe you were stingy, or maybe you were impatient, or maybe you were not so kind. Maybe you're ungrateful. But it's just because you didn't know what you were. Didn't know what you are. And then that changes. Hopefully that helps. See you in the next one.